Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This episode, we freshen up my center console and make it look brand new. Now a project like this is definitely doable at home in your own garage. You don't need any real specific tools. I'm going to go a little bit more complicated with mine. I'm going to be doing some French stitching over the top just to give it a bit of a, give it some zazz. But there is no reason why you need to have that on yours. You can simply wrap it around in one piece. The better quality vinyl you have, the better and easier this is going to be. Alternatively, you can always clean it up and paint it with a vinyl dye. That is always an option. I've seen a few good videos online about that. So I'm going to wrap this. I'm going to be painting the console itself, and this is going to look awesome. We have to strip this down, get it down to its individual pieces. A few pieces to it. Not that complicated, everything's filthy as. Been sitting around for a long time. I'll grab my drill, remove these screws, and get to work. I'm going to put the body aside for now, and we're going to concentrate on this cushion first, the lid. So first thing, I'm going to have to clean this down because this is filthy and nothing's going to stick to it yet. So we want a nice clean surface and give our glue the best chance to stick to this. I'm going to use an alcohol based cleaner because sometimes the wax and grease removers can seep into the plastics. So we're going to get the methyl out in a rag, give this a nice big scrub. So, I made a bit of a mistake. I mistakenly grabbed the wax and grease remover instead of the methyl. So, I've given that a thorough scrub with the methylated spirits and also with these alcohol wipes. So, these are isopropyl alcohol, which leaves doesn't leave the residue that the methylated spirits does. That is now cleaned. Now, I have to scrub that again, because I cleaned that with the wax and grease remover instead of the alcohol. I'm going to prime this in the plastic primer, and while that is setting, I'm going to be prepping the lid. So I've got this rough little setup. They're going to paint this console here. Definitely not the most ideal setup. I know I should have things tarped up and all that to prevent overspray, but I'm just going to risk it, so please don't judge me too harshly. I'm going to cut a corner here, and I'm going to start spraying this inside. So this is the can I will be using, Super Cheap Auto product, plastic and fiberglass primer. I was not expecting it to be a clear finish. Some of these cans come out with a grey finish. Kind of what you typically expect for your standard primers. Now if we look closer, I tried to sand out a mark that we have in the plastic there. Got it better, but it's not perfect. I just really want it to be a decent looking off-roading hot rod. That's the concept I'm going for. I'm gonna let that sit. I'm gonna come back over to the table. I'm gonna start prepping this again. Before I start scrubbing it again, I'm gonna start marking out for the cover. Now it would be a lot easier just to clean, prep and prime this ready for paint as well. So there's no reason you can't just paint this a different color. It's a lot easier than it is to cover that. So doing it at home, feel free to paint that and save yourself a lot of heartache. All right, so I'm gonna cover this. Most of these you can cover in one panel, but as you can see this is the front of the cover there. Because it kicks back on itself, as it has that peak at the front, this essentially makes this impossible to cover in one hit. It's going to need to be done in a couple panels. So It's going to be a top piece up and over. It's going to have a seam in the corners. So it's going to run up, over, and down here. If you wanted to save yourself a bit of time and a bit of effort, you can get away with 2 pieces. You can have a piece up and over and a panel on the front. So that would be enough to get the job done. You would still have to heat up the corners significantly to stretch the vinyl to actually wrap around. Another thing to take into account when you are trying to wrap these in vinyl, you have to allow for the thickness of the vinyl itself. Now I'm using this tray that sits in here, just as a storage unit. But as you can see, it fits in very neatly there. There would not be enough room for our vinyl to actually wrap around there. We can trim down this edge here to allow room, but I don't want our trimming to be as visible. As soon as we trim that, that's not covered by any vinyl. It's not going to look perfect. I want to trim out some of this original cover. We only need an extra millimeter, and that will give us enough for that tub to sit in. And because the vinyl is going to be wrapping around the edge, then held in place with that cover, we don't need to worry so much that we're going to be cutting out the cover that hooks that in place. So that's the plan. We have had an issue. So on the back here, I put the primer on a little too thick and it had some runs, and I don't think I'll let it set for long enough. As you can see, we have some fish eyes on the back. Certainly not ideal. So I'm gonna have to let this set, then I'm gonna have to sand the back, and I'm gonna have to start the whole process again. A little frustrating, but unfortunately these things happen. That's all right. We're back in the morning. As you can see, get closer here. It's not fantastic, so I'm not 100% sure why this has happened. This side and the front seem to be fine. I don't know if that's due to my mistake of grabbing the wax and grease remover. I thought I scrubbed it enough with the alcohol after for it not to matter. Either way, we're going to sand this down and we're going to try fix it. So I have that console cleaned and it's now drying outside, sitting in the sun. The paint hasn't gone too great on that, so I'm hoping by sanding that down, I've sanded the whole thing. Once it's dry, I'll hit it with the ISO wipes and give it a nice, good thorough clean off. I'm gonna prime it and then I'm gonna try to paint it again. All right, fingers crossed I can get this right second time around. For now, I'm gonna jump onto the console cushion. First thing with these covers, we're gonna take our Sharpie and we're gonna be drawing our design on the console lid. So once we draw our design on the console lid, we can sit our vinyl on top, transfer the marks to the vinyl, and that becomes a new cover. I've decided I'm going to back this with some thin foam. It's only 3mm thick, this foam. So I think that would be, what would that be? Probably 1/8. But this thin foam, now that's going to allow us to soften the edges. So this groove in the center will be a lot softer, but my main reason for adding the foam is our seam here. If you don't have any foam on this and you glue straight to that hard plastic there, the seam is going to sit up and it's going to look a little unsightly. We have our French stitching complete. You see I've got a small foam backing. So I'm not going to be gluing this to the surface. So we probably won't see too much of this groove in the center. But having that foam there will allow all our transitions to be a lot smoother and a lot softer. We need to trim back some of this plastic here, some of the original covering, to allow our base plate to actually mount back in there. As you can see, there is almost no gap between the original covering and this base plate. So this is ready to be prepped for paint again. Changing it up a little bit, I'm going with my ISO wipes. One wipe with the ISO, followed by one wipe with a clean rag. I've also put on my gloves, prevent any oil growing from my skin, to the console itself, and hopefully that should get the result working the way I want it. It's been about a week since I've touched this console here. Don't know if any of you guys are in Western Australia, but it has been raining and storming non-stop. So making filming incredibly hard, especially on a tin roof. It's impossible to talk to you guys while it's raining like that. But hopefully I can get some filming done. So this console is now set. The paint is decent enough for me not to care. Like there's scratches and all sorts in the plastic itself, but like everything else, it is perfect for this build. Doesn't need to be that shiny, but I kind of like that look, so that's what we're doing. I had a bit of a win. The lid is now mounted to the console itself now. So a bit of a contrast with our synthetic leather and our gloss paint there, but I'm liking it. The highlighted stitching definitely adds a little bit of a zazz to it. So I think that's going to sit awesome in the car with our new seats that we're building. And under here, I don't know if you can see, but I've set a little piece of plastic in under the little plastic spring that allows that to work as standard. So that's nice and tight. They did exactly the trick. Now I still need to paint the hinges and the screws and all that, but that's a job for another day. Still all these little plugs, and these I have to clean up and paint, but they're all over there. Borrowing stuff that I'll probably do off camera just to save a bit of time. And in here, we're going to be tackling this roof lining. So I've got to pull all this out. We have all these plastics we've got to prep and paint as well. So for those who haven't heard yet, I'll be putting our flannel material up on the roof. So that's going to look absolutely awesome. Down the sides, it's going to be our black. It's going to look magnificent. That's going to be it for this episode. I appreciate you guys watching, and we'll see you next time on Santa Project Bench. Bye.